What does Metroidvania even mean? A Metroidvania is a subgenre of action-adventure video games. The word Metroidvania is a combination of two extremely popular video game franchises, Metroid and Castlevania, thus producing Metroidvania. A few key gameplay features must be met in order to determine if a game is a Metroidvania or not. These are my 7 key features all Metroidvanias must include. Number 1. Side-scrolling. A pure Metroidvania must be a 2D side-scrolling video game. While your character moves to the left or the right, the screen will follow our hero in whatever direction they choose. This includes environments above you or below. The screen can move in any direction that the character is moving towards. Number 2. Action platforming. A Metroidvania must contain action platforming. Now let's take these two words and break them down. Action is exactly as it sounds. You will be confronted with all kinds of enemies. Some enemies will be big. Some enemies will be small. Others will be exotic. And some will even feel alive. Combat will vary wildly per game, but at the very core of each game, action must reside somewhere to be considered a Metroidvania. Platforming refers to the character's ability to jump onto various platforms placed throughout the environment. The platforming capabilities of the player will depend heavily on the primary focus of the game. Certain Metroidvanias focus on platforming. Many others put their attention towards a well-polished combat system. Number 3. Non-linear progression. Non-linear progression refers to the sequence of events, or lack thereof, that must be completed in order for the game to reach its apex and final conclusion. Well, what does that mean? That sounded awfully confusing. In order to complete the game, you do not have to go from one level to the next in a specific order that was predetermined from the developers. What games utilize this well? Where can we see this? I would look no further than Time Spinner. When you acquire the ability to transport yourself between both the past and future, you are able to tackle 2 timelines simultaneously. The specific path that you embark on to beat the game can be completely different depending on whether you want to fight in the past or the present. That's key to the purest Metroidvania definition. Progression has to be non-linear. Number 4. Gameplay changing abilities. In all Metroidvanias, the player needs to acquire gameplay changing abilities and upgrades. In Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you can see Alucard turn into a bat to grant passage to undiscovered areas. In Super Metroid, you will notice Samus turning into a ball and allowing her to traverse into areas that were once too small to enter. But let's take a look at a modern example. One of my favorite Metroidvanias is Ori and the Blind Forest. This game adds additional abilities to your player's arsenal, allowing the environments to be traversed in an entirely different manner from when you first started playing. Take a look at this level in the beginning of the playthrough. Notice how Ori is moving through the level. Now, towards the end of the game, Ori is zipping through the air and stomping out anything that gets in his way. The game quite literally changes the way it is played based upon abilities and upgrades the player can acquire. This will dictate the design of the future levels and require the developers to get more creative with their environmental designs. Number 5. Backtracking. In both Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the player was forced to backtrack through the environment with new skills and abilities acquired throughout the playthrough in order to progress further. For those of you who have played this marvelous game, you will remember these pesky iron bars blocking your passage. The player is unable to progress past these bars until they get the Mist ability. Later on in the playthrough, the player will come across the Mist ability. After they return back to the bars, Alucard is able to turn into mist and slip past the bars. You first have to acquire a new skill, only then can you backtrack in order to progress the file. Super Metroid has a million of these examples. One that many will remember are the doors that need to be attacked with specific weapons in order to grant passage. One door in particular is colored green. This door requires a collision with a super missile to be unlocked. In order to achieve the super missile, you first must progress through Crateria. Afterwards, you then make your way through Brinstar. Only once you have defeated Spore Spawn in Brinstar are you able to acquire super missiles. With these now in possession, you can shoot any green door and progress onward. Number 6. A static map. A static map is another key component of the Metroidvania definition. The map will reveal itself to the player as the areas are discovered by the player. This map will not change in layout or size at any point during your playthrough. Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid both share the same mapping style, with very slight differences. As time has progressed, games like Hollow Knight and Ori and the Blind Forest have adapted this exact same style, with a tad more artistic ambition. The maps are vitally important to the success of the player. They let you know what areas you have explored and what you have not. Procedurally generated environments and maps differ from static maps in that they do change in both layout and size throughout the playthrough. An example of this can be seen in Dead Cells. Every time the player dies, they are reborn at the very beginning of the game. The level that you will play through will be the same, but the map and layout will be totally different. The way the developers decided to keep the game interesting was by procedurally generating the levels of the game over and over again. This way, when you beat the same level again, it is not as you remembered it. In Metroidvanias, both the levels and maps are not supposed to be procedurally generated. While games that use procedurally generated maps may share many similarities with Metroidvanias, they do not focus on backtracking enough to warrant being called a Metroidvania. Number 7. Items. A Metroidvania would not be complete without a full catalog of items. This can include singular usage items such as potions, equipable weapons, equipable armor sets, or improved abilities. In each of these cases, the player is able to find an item that has the potential to aid them in their quest. In Time Spinner, the player is allowed to equip orbs as their primary weapon. These orbs all vary greatly between one another and allow the player to pick and choose their playstyle. Some prefer to pound their enemies into the ground, while others, such as myself, may prefer to attack their enemies from a safe distance. The combat can vary a ton, and the lasting effect is that the game can feel completely different across multiple playthroughs. Salt and Sanctuary contains armor sets that can greatly change the player's experience. About 30% through the game you will encounter the Kraken Dragon. This guy is a major pain in the ass. He shoots fire at you and the ground in order to crisp anything that comes near him. If you did not discover the Blacksmith Armor Set, you may be wondering to yourself if the game is balanced properly. The Blacksmith Armor Set has extremely high fire resistance, making the fire damage you take reasonable, at least to an extent. Without finding this item throughout your world explorations, you may find taking this boss down to be quite the process. If you are a fan of the Metroidvania genre and you think I missed something, please leave a comment below. Moving forward, I will be focusing my YouTube efforts in creating material that is of much higher quality and will show off the developer side of the video game industry. If you would like to speak with me personally, you can find the link to my Discord server on my YouTube channel. As always, remember to like the video and to subscribe to the channel. Not enough? Need some more? Find me on Twitter and Instagram at GamerDevTim. Later, guys.